welcome everyone. And thank you, Panos, for joining me today. So appreciate it. I'd love you to give me like 1 minute on what you do.
I have a portfolio that extends like from Zoox, if you've seen it here in Vegas, self-driving cars or robotaxi. And on the other end of that would be what you would call Project Leo or Kuiper. So those are the big kind of bets.
Yep.
I'd say Alexa's a pretty big bet too, though. I also am in charge of Alexa, Alexa Plus. And then the product lines are Eero, Fire TV, Ring, Blink, Kindle. And there's a long list. And then now that I didn't say them all, I'll get in trouble next week. But I something like that.
You got the major ones. All right. Now, our goal today is to keep it very real, Panos. So I think we picked the right crew here.
Okay.
So we're going to just be open and honest on these areas. So I'm going to start with thinking about. We talk about how Amazon really starts with people, right? And you oversee, as you just said, a huge portfolio of products that are in massive scale. But how do you think about people and customer obsession, balancing not disrupting or upsetting an install base of users and know how to use these devices and they love them, but constantly needing to bring new innovation and bringing new technology they may or may not even have asked for?
It's pretty tricky. Between Ring, Alexa, Fire TV, you're talking about hundreds of millions of customers using their products every day. And I would say somewhat religiously, they use it with purpose. Mm-hmm. When we talk about customer obsession, it's not a tagline. It is literally in our bones. And so when you have hundreds of millions of customers using your product every day, you need to bring them along on any journey you're on or where you think you're going.
Right.
I think this is probably the most critical thing because as AI comes down the pipe and every one of us is reinventing with AI right now and then using AI to reinvent the experience, you can't just move people's cheese. You can't just take away something that they've been relying on for 5 or 10 years. Critical. So how do you do it? First, you respect the customer and what they're telling you today, what they need, what they do every day. Understand the data, understand what they're using your product for, and make sure you respect that without any doubt. And don't get me wrong, there's also this clamoring of what's AI going to do to transform your product? And when you get to that point, you sit back and say, what are the things you need to do that are useful for your customer where they respect not only what you're bringing forward, but they get to use the product for what it was meant for. And I think this is kind of the tension we deal with every single day because you're never done building these products. And if you can understand the usage patterns, that's great, but they also need to continuously be reinvented. I think an example, if I give you one, is so there's a customer need. If you can meet it, maybe the customer doesn't know how to ask for it, but let's talk about Ring. You have Ring video descriptions right now. This is pretty interesting. Previously, if you were using Ring, your notification would just say there's movement in front of your house. Or now you get a full video description of there are 2 people walking in the driveway. One of them has a shovel and you're like, oh crap, what the hell's going on in my driveway? And you immediately go to your phone, you get the information you need, but that's AI in action. It's a need that the customer had. They didn't necessarily ask for it. And then when you present it, it has this incredible solution for information that AI brought forward. And it's a useful piece of AI. It's an incremental change to the product, but it's transformative.
I want to stay on this for a second because you have this interesting challenge of, we love all about customer obsession on Amazon. We talk about working backwards from the customer need.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes that can lead people to think, well, I'm just going to do what the customer asked me to do, right? But you have to invent ahead of that. And how do you think about both listening, of course, hearing that feedback from customers, but inventing things they don't even know to ask for, right? How to bring those things together?
Yeah, I think across in my team's world, we're always thinking about the device and the service that goes with the device. So it's the service and the device coming together, whether it's Alexa Plus or what will eventually be the Leo service, the Fire TV, the streaming service. Product making. If I answer your question, talk to the team like this. There's 3 sections to this pie. When you talk about customer obsession, sometimes people get lost and the customer said they needed this, and I gave it to them. I think that's true when you're making products about 33% of the time. This is the way I kind of think about it. This is my own construct. 33% of the time, the customer, whether it's through a survey, through usage, through what they do every day, for what they said they needed, if you're listening, and you have to listen, you must listen, they're going to be right. And that's about 33% of what being customer obsessed is for a device. The other 33 or 60, the next two sections are, one of them is in your labs, in your teams, there's technology that only you can see. And whether that's 1, 3, or 5 years out, it's technology is coming that can solve new customer problems and find new needs to solve for that will make not only the product exceptional, but the experience for the customer off the charts.
Yeah.
So 33% of it is, what the tech is, what your customer is saying. Do you really solve the problem now, or do you lead them to what's next? The last part of that pie is vision. It's never as simple as here's the tech, how do I fill it in? Or here's what the customer said, how do I answer it? It's also, what's your vision? Where are you taking the customer? I think this is really important. You're developing now, you're developing to get the customer where they want to go. And these are slightly different things. Like, here's what they asked for, here's what they're trying to get to. And in 5 years from now, are you going to have a product that's ready for them? If you only listened to what the customer said in feedback, you would never develop what was coming in 5 years. You just wouldn't be able to see it.
Yeah, I think the first 33% I call them like paper cuts. Solving the paper cuts.
A lot of times, like there's a one list, or if you have a like from a commercial customer or CIO comes in and says, here are the 10 things I need. You're like, you got to serve those 10 things. But if you thought that was the only part of serving your customer, they're just going to have a new product before you know it.
Yeah, I do think there's something magical about the Amazon culture of asking why, right? Or why not? And I actually think that allows us to marry the customer obsession with the vision piece of it. Because by asking why not, you actually are able to let yourself go after those unmet, unstated needs for customers, but still in a way that's very customer.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. Yeah. Well framed.
All right, you've mentioned Leo, so we're going to talk about
Sure.
Amazon Leo, formerly known as Project Kuiper. It represents one of Amazon's biggest bets with over 3,200 satellites planned, which is very impressive. Now, on a project like this, there is no real blueprint. It's a huge bet. It's a really long-term bet. So leading a project like this, how do you think about how do you evaluate it? How do you think about investments? How do you guide the decisions along the way?
We have a leadership principle at Amazon that we talk about that I just love, actually adore. And it lives every day with us, and it's called Think Big. Kuiper/Leo, and I'm going to say both because I've taken feedback at this show, like, why did you change the name? It should just be Kuiper. And then I've changed it. Like, I love the name Leo, so I'm just going to say both right now.
Please, everybody.
The team really wants me to say Leo, but okay. Is one of those big bets.
Yep.
But to your question, the way I think frame it and how does a big bet really work? There's always going to be hard decisions. There's always going to be, challenges, and they're time-based bets. Generally, when they're big, they don't happen overnight. But I will say this, that the most critical thing you can do when making a big bet is be unbelievably crystal clear on what your mission is. It is the number one thing by far, without any doubt. As a matter of fact, you should all ask yourselves, if you're making a big bet right now at your company, how clear are you on your mission to yourself and to the people that are working on it? This I found it doesn't solve every problem, but it's for sure the anchoring point on where you're trying to get to next. Mission must be clear. So think about Leo. The mission is basically to solve the digital divide, provide internet for everyone on the planet. It's super clear. And to do that, you have to do it. You start understanding the principles. You have to do it at the lowest cost possible. You have to do it in a way where connectivity never fails you. You have to do it in a way that's inventive in new ways. That then leads you, once your mission is clear, it leads you to decisions on speed of building satellites, how fast you need to get them up. How do you think about designing your silicon? How do you make sure you take as much cost out of the product as possible up front so your customer terminals are reasonable so you actually can solve that digital divide? And when you start breaking it down, you then end up in this bet that's massive. Here's the trick. We don't blink. At Amazon, we don't blink because the mission is so clear, specifically on Leo. And so when the investment has to be made or when the bet needs to be laid down, you go back as, does it serve the mission or does it not? Now, there's a lot of nuance in there, but at the end of the day, where I would challenge yourselves, and I always challenge myself, is like, this serve the mission or not? And what it also leads to, which is really important, and I'm a big, I believe in teams long before I believe in technology, because it's always the people that are going to create it to serve it.
Right.
If your mission is clear, you end up with missionaries on your project. critical. If it's the missionary versus mercenary, have you ever heard that conversation?
Yeah.
On a project this big where the bet is so long, I mean, we're 6 years, billions of dollars into Kuiper. We're right on the cusp of that knee bend, right? Where we're that hockey stick, that curve up where all of you are going to be able to use it. We can talk about that. But ultimately, then you end up with missionaries who are very invested. They understand the mission and they run at it hard. And I think that's where we're at right now with Leo.
I love that. But okay, missions is super important. Right?
Yeah.
But what about when we don't have unlimited resources? No one has unlimited resources. Like, how do you think about balancing that when you have to make trade-offs?
It's tricky. That I'll go back. You don't compromise the mission, but when you do have to make trade-offs, then you have to find the gray areas. There's a couple of ways to think about it. Yeah. First go back to big decisions. Along this journey, we're 6 years in, and it's a lifelong project to connect the world. You end up in so many decisions that are one-way doors, what we call one-way doors, and two-way door decisions. And you try and get to as many two-way door decisions as you can, so you can kind of create the journey as you go and go ahead and make mistakes. On big bets, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and we've made plenty.
Right.
But if your mission's clear, you just stay on the path.
Yeah.
You may veer every now and then, but if it was a decision that was wrong, it's okay, come back. Mm-hmm. When you get to those one-way door decisions, those are the ones that can't be compromised. So now you're at a place of trade-offs. You're either going to get more investment, which is that's tricky, or you're going to look at what is the customer promise you're making.
Okay.
And where is it that you do have to now start not trade off what the customer needs, but look at the mission, hold it, customer needs, hold it. And now you can always, and I promise you, always find the trade-offs within that. And if you're disciplined about it, when that trade-off is truly a one-way door decision. And I would bet it's very rare that that's the case.
Yeah.
And so you take the risk on the two-way door, and if you're wrong, you just come back to it, and you get vocally self-critical, and you say, I missed. Mm-hmm. And you come back and you say trade-off was wrong, and you just rehash and you keep moving forward.
I like that. And I do think that one-way, two-way door metaphor is such a valuable one in those moments.
Yeah, for me, it's huge. I look at it as it's so critical because you then start choosing where you should put your time.
Right.
This is a two-way door decision. Like, empowering your team is everything.
Yep.
I've just seen a couple team members out here today, and I look at them and I get to take so much pride because I go, these are leaders who just make the critical decisions every single day. Mm-hmm. But of course, when there's a big one-way door, like that one decision that you just can't come back from, like, let's all get in a room and let's make it. And I think when that's the case, you just end up moving faster. And Andy talks about, being the world's largest startup. That's kind of how you do it. You empower your teams to run as fast as they can on as many decisions as possible.
Yep.
And you just keep moving.
Yep. Well, that's key to innovation, constant innovation. Now, before we leave Leo for just a second, any chance you can provide an update on when AWS customers might be able to access?
That wasn't on my list.
You don't have to answer.
Yeah. Well, here's the status. It's pretty awesome. There's 150 plus satellites that are up right now. Ultimately, we have 4 different launch providers, 5 different rockets that we launch on. We have a series of launches coming up. We're building many satellites. We're in pretty good shape. In the early 2026, customers in this room, you can start testing it now, but in early 2026, you're going to be into being able to use it as commercial customers. Nice. We're pretty excited. Like, we're right there. It's exciting. And then it's just this powerful, you have this opportunity. It's such a unique product for our commercial customers because you can go direct to AWS. It's about as secure as it possibly gets. Yep. Going through the internet, nothing to direct connection. We're pretty pumped about it right now.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. I can't wait. All right. I want to talk about a question I get, a conversation I have with probably every customer I meet is around adapting to AI and learning to work with AI. And I you and I both know it's just fundamentally different. And I've heard you even call it once like a living system versus a defined endpoint when it comes to AI, and certainly expand on that. But interested in, for this room, like what you've seen your team do at learnings, lessons along the way, but also successes and how to adapt, just fundamentally think differently, work differently with AI than the past.
I think the first thing is, I've used the word living system. It's not something that I walk around and say, but the reason we talk about it that way is because I learned some valuable lessons early. Traditionally, when you decide a project or you define a project, you have a very clear endpoint. Mm-hmm. And it's with AI, I would say it's the number one thing I learned very quickly. Like, oh my gosh, we're still in chapter 1 of this book, folks. We're so early. And if you think you're going to define what your product is 6 months from now without having an open mind of what it can become or will become or what you learn, I think maybe we've missed. And so look at Alexa Plus. Alexa Plus, a big bet, big AI bet, it sits on top of Bedrock. It's this huge opportunity, but at the same time, like, it's updating itself every week. It's an entirely evolving, living process. And ultimately for the customers, that's a great thing. Sure. It's also incredible for your developers because it enables discovery. It enables people to not be afraid to use the tools, get after it, go as fast as you can, and take some risk. If you define the endpoint in a classic project, if I think about programs I ran 5, 6, 7 years ago, shipping a product, like here's the endpoint, start point A, point Z, we're done, product ship, what's the next product? I think you're missing the chance to innovate. And so one of my pushes right now with AI is you have to think about it as a living system. Yes, you have checkpoints along the way. You define what you're delivering for your customers, no question. But you have to enable risk-taking with your developers. You must. It's a must. And when you do, the discovery process, it's incredible. The seeds planted, the flowers that bloom is incredible. And then you start finding things that you're like, this is a great opportunity for a customer. And then you can refine, hone in, and put a date on it. But until then, you really don't want to take that away. And so we talked about having a bias for action. Yeah. So let's go back to a leadership principle and just a cultural attribute. Yeah. This is what it's talking about. I want my teams to fail as fast as they possibly can. I want them to have a bias for action when they're developing something. I want them to understand that maybe the endpoint you defined can be better than what you've defined it for. So before you think it's the end, it might just be the beginning again. So back to my first statement, I think we're at the very beginning of this journey on most cases when it comes to just AI and foundational models, where it's taking us and how you can use them. The way to think about that is build your system as flexible as you possibly can, because you want to be able to adapt as your developers find the tricks and turns and so forth. Alexa Plus is built on multiple different models. It's built on different ways of inference and how you think about just the arbitration of the product and where the answer is going to come from. That allows basically our devs to be able to, and the product makers and the product managers to be able to make the decision on what's the best thing for the customer. If you have that adaptability, then you can deliver it. Yeah.
I listened to your talk. It's, it's at a much, maybe a slower pace than we're seeing with AI. But I think about the very earliest days of the clouds, or even a cloud, even again, like when serverless was invented, things started changing quickly. There was this need to just stop and just move and pivot fast. Like just like you said, move with action, then pivot, but not make any long-term commitments because you just didn't know. And so keeping that constant flexibility.
It is with speed.
Yes, but you can't slow down. You just have to
and you got to take some risks. Like the pitfall is having the endpoint. The opportunity is reach in, take the risk, test, find a miss, pull back, change. Yeah. Back to these aren't one-way doors. These are two-way doors, and you keep pushing it. Being adaptable.
The other thing I hear in what you said is also just the need to unlearn. Right, it's like unlearn that there's an endpoint. Right, and unlearn. And I'm reminded that maybe every day in my job of to do the next thing, you have to unlearn the last thing, and not forget it. But you have to let go of some of these mental models that you have and realize there's a new mental model to be built. And I think hear that in what you're saying.
It's quite accurate.
Yeah. All right. I know that's something we're all in on together in this one. All right. I was earlier, if you haven't already, I was over at the One Amazon Way over at Caesar's Palace, and it has this whole set of technology of Amazon, of course, running on AWS, and I appreciate your partnership on that. And I was thinking about you have all these incredible devices and Ring and Alexa and Zoox and everything, and you're building for today, of course, right? And you're listening to customers today, and you're inventing, but all of them are, with AI and all coming up. There's a whole generation of your users that have been born with AI, right? They don't know anything else, and their expectations, what makes sense to them is different. So I was just curious of how do you think about inventing for what is a whole different mindset that's coming to the fore?
Yeah, I think the way people use their products, especially, a generation that's only going to know AI in several years from now, 10 years, 15 years from now, you have to design your product with how does the engagement models change over time? Think about Alexa Plus. We'll just take that for just a minute. Alexa it is becoming and will be, and this is all relative to usage, but it's going to be your personal butler. It's going to enable being your security guard between Ring and Alexa. It's your house manager. It's your DJ. It's your entertainment partner. It's your assistant. It's your personal shopper, literally. What does that mean? It means this. The engagement model is customers aren't going to want to know how it worked. They're not going to need to. As a matter of fact, they probably could have coded it themselves at that point. But you just want it to work. And you want to be able to talk or type and speak and get the outcome that you expected. And I think that's a little bit different now where you solve problems along the way. I think you just want these assistants or these agents to solve the problems for you just by asking a question or it understanding you better. And so as we design these products, it's how we think about it. It's what Alexa Plus is becoming for many people right now. We watch that engagement now. We watch it happen in such a natural way. All of a sudden, I'm either adding to my calendar, I know what's happening tomorrow, I'm getting my reminders, I'm setting up a routine. It knows the music I want to hear. It knows when I'm cooking and what the background might be. These are just little ambient things that are starting to happen around us every day. And now the power of that in 5 years is going to be incredible because the user understanding will be very high with the user's permissions. And then fundamentally, you're able to deliver these outcomes that people will demand and expect.
Yeah.
If you need to remove it. I love this idea. There's some bad examples I have for you. Maybe I'll hold them back because we're out of time. But there's so many different ways today that there's these user challenges that you don't think about every day.
Yeah.
But that AI is going to solve for you. And then, but in 5 years from now, those problems won't be real. Right now, when you sit in front of a TV, I'll give you an example. You sit in front of a TV and you're doing a streaming service. You're likely take you somewhere between 12 and 6. If you don't know what you wanted to watch before you sat down, you probably sit down with somebody else. This might be familiar to some of you. It probably takes you about 14 to 18 minutes to pick what you're going to watch. Yeah, I see some
which
nods.
streaming service do you have to go to?
Yeah, like which service, where am I going, and so forth. Like, do you realize like that problem? It will be and is being solved for you right now with Alexa Plus. But in 3 years from now, that's not going to be a decision. If you're still doing discovery for 15 minutes, it's because that's what you do to watch TV. You just do discovery.
Yeah.
You don't really want to watch anything. But at the end of the day, like these challenges or problems, they go away very quickly because AI is there for you and can understand you, and the products then adapt to what you're doing.
Yeah, so it just becomes invisible. But
100%. You sit down and you're 30 seconds in, you're like, here are the 7 options. Of course it is.
Yeah.
Recommended the right show. Here are the last 5 things you watched. Here's the music you've been listening to. Here's what you... And you kind of go through it and you're like, oh, of course, that's what I want to watch next. Yeah.
But I hear you saying you're actually building for what I was teeing up as like that next generation, because that's what everyone's going to expect.
It's an expectation that the customers already want to have.
Yeah.
And I think in 3 to 5 years, they're going to not only have, but demand.
Yeah, it makes me remember like when the millennial mindset was taking over, and then like everyone just had that mindset.
Yeah.
It's the same expectations move fast.
That's right.
All right, so I have a personal question. I want to know what the future device really looks like, and really specifically, will I still have to be carrying my phone around?
Yes. I know people don't want to hear that. Like, yes. I mean, some people do. I mean, for sure. I think you're going to, there's always this question I get on, is the phone going away because of AI? And I don't think it is, and not anytime soon, not within, but I do think there's a ton of jobs that are going to move off the phone into new devices for our customers, for sure.
Yeah.
And whether it's in your pocket, on your body, on your eyes, whatever it might be, but ultimately, jobs are going to move. But I don't think the phone goes away. I remember 15 years ago, I was building a laptop, and somebody said, "Why are you doing that? The laptop is dead." And it's going away. It won't exist anymore. I'm looking at 2 laptops right now in the front row, or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 laptops in the front row. Like, that was 15 years ago. What really happened was, the phone came along. It didn't kill the laptop. It just moved the jobs that were better for the phone onto the phone, and the laptop only got stronger. I think with AI, what we're going to see is the phone's only going to get stronger at the certain things you need it to do, but it'll probably stay in your pocket more because AI will do the things that you didn't need to open your phone for. And back to just your expectation. I want to say it, and it's going to happen. I want to see it, it's going to happen. I don't need to take out my phone to take that next step, but I do believe your phone will be with you. And to your question, I won't talk about what the next set of devices are, But I will say there is a number of devices in labs, I'm sure all over the world, that are like, here's what AI can bring, here's what the device can do for you. And most of them won't be right, but there is a transformation coming. These are, what cameras can do, what microphones can do, what understanding people around us can do, knowing where you are, the environment you're in, what your health signals are. All of that comes together in a very smart way where then your assistant can be with you and just help you through your day for sure.
Got it. All right, that brings me to one of our leadership principles, earns trust. And I think about the devices you build.
That's a good question.
And they're in my home, your home, everyone's homes, and it's intimate. It's a very personal space that these are sitting in. And how do you think about that as you're building these devices and kind of both earning customer trust, maintaining customer trust as they're used?
I think you anchor it as it's not an option. It's not a feature. It is the product.
Okay.
Actually, the way we talk about it as a team is security and privacy is everything. Everything. You lose customer trust. It doesn't matter how much you create value for them. They will not come back, period. We anchor everything we do in AWS. You probably heard Matt talk about security earlier today. If you watched his keynote, it was quite powerful, just very clear. It's super important that all your architecture, your infrastructure, your entire team understands that this is a first principle on anything you're designing, especially for Alexa, Ring. These are microphones, these are cameras, these are personal spaces. I have cameras in my home, all over my home. I love the information it gives me, but it always comes down to, I have the choice if I want that to be the case. So giving your customer the option of what they want recorded, what they want to be heard, what they want to see, but ultimately building things in a secure way is critical. And I can't express it enough, because then what happens is you start creating so much value for the customer. The risk stays here, but the value's up here. They're going to come to your products for sure. We have a product right now. This is one of my favorite products. I'll share it with you. It's called Search Party. And I'll say it, we took a little bit of heat for this. Search Party is a Ring product. If you haven't used it, it's quite cool. And it's called Search Party for Dogs. This is for dogs. And if you lose your dog, you can upload a photo of your dog and you can send a note to the community. And then this is back to, if a customer is going to opt in and say, I want to help, they can turn on their outdoor cameras and AI will look for the dog, try and match the picture to the dog. By the way, it's really cool. We found basically a dog a day, a missing dog a day. It's like real use AI. It's pretty crazy. It's really fun when you hear the stories. There's a lot of tears involved. It's a great value for customers. But it does come down to this moment of, look, if you are you going to help the community? Are you opting in? And I want to share that this is my dog. And then there's other folks that are turning on their cameras to see, hey, has the dog been in the neighborhood? Yes, identify it. And then there's a communication securely where customers can connect with each other and say, I think I found your dog. And it works. It's quite powerful. At the same time, people go, wait a minute, that's, you're using my camera. No. It's fundamentally a customer who's opting in that wants to use their camera to help. And I think it's outdoor and it's got so many different secure elements to it, but it comes down to the customer choosing to be part of that. And then when you're solving real world problems, this is the value versus the risk. It's worth it because you're making a difference on the planet, which I think hopefully we're all here to make a difference. And I think, that's a big part of what we do.
Yes. Thank you for that. So I heard about the Search Party.
Search Party for dogs. It's so fun. It's very cool. Whenever we find a dog, it's like team gets super pumped. The Ring team couldn't be more excited. And the dogs are super cute. And, everybody got to love dogs, right?
Dogs. All right. I think we're just going to leave it with that, right?
All right.
It doesn't get better than that, Panos. Thank you. Thank you as always, for keeping it real, for sharing not just what you do, but how you think about what you do, which is so insightful. So, and thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.